Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric with the Lorebrarians YouTube channel. Today we'll be exploring a tale of tragedy and betrayal, of sacrifice and selfishness, of deceit and destruction, of a battle waged between several legendary characters across the centuries and continents of Dominaria. In this video, we're recounting the story of Dakkon, master blacksmith and planeswalker, as well as the circumstances surrounding the forging of his legendary Blackblade. A story that draws in many other notable characters in Magic the Gathering, who have finally been given cards in the recent Modern Horizons 2 set. But before we begin, I'd like to give you all a little update about the channel. A few weeks ago I put up a poll asking what kind of videos the community enjoys, and I really appreciate the feedback it received. It also appears that many of you enjoy listening to longer lore videos that provide a detailed deep dive over larger topics. So moving forward, I plan on making more descriptive, more engaging, and lengthier videos about some of the important arcs and stories in MTG. In order to balance this, I'll probably have to slow down the release schedule of my videos, as it will take more time for me to create longer content. But I'm very excited about this change in direction for the channel, and for the suggestions you all have given. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, or if Magic the Gathering is dear to you, consider subscribing to the channel. The support is much appreciated. Alright, time to dust off ancient tomes and travel to the war-torn past of Dominaria as we uncover the truth of Dakkon Blackblade. Let's dive in. Our story begins not with Dakkon nor in his time, but rather millennia before, with a vile force that has schemed, manipulated, corrupted, or otherwise made its presence felt on dozens of planes across the multiverse. A planeswalker whose thirst for power is matched only by their own ambition, and whose machinations span centuries as they lay claim to all of the multiverse they can get their hands on. The vile, ancient, and demonic planeswalker known as Geyadrone Dihada. Dijada is a master of manipulation, a puppet master that pulls the strings of souls corrupted by her insidious whispers. Geyadrone was first mentioned in the flavor text of Lore back in 5th edition, that captures her persona perfectly. When setting a snare, success depends not on the quality of the trap, but the quality of the bait. The only thing she relishes more than achieving her goals is having her unwitting pawns achieve them for her. Dijada is a master of temptation and can corrupt even the most stalwart of hearts, while all along convincing them that they're following their own desires. We see her talents on display in her Planeswalker card. Her sealing magic can bind creatures and beings to her will, allowing her to summon them when she sees fit. This magic is powerful enough to mark beings as strong as elder dragons, of which she has bound 2, Piru and Chromium Rule. And if we pull up the illustration of her card, we can see a dragon flying above Dijada in the background, likely one of the pair. Creatures, beings, and planeswalkers strong enough to resist her magic nonetheless fall victim to her influence and corruption, as her words twist their will around her fingers. As Geyadrone traveled the multiverse, scheming and accruing power, word came to her of a man with great potential, a warrior and master smith on the plane of Dominaria, who possessed something within him few had. The plans began to unfold in her mind of how best she could manipulate this being. And so Dijada traveled to the continent of Karandor to seek out her pawn and mold him to her schemes, to seek out a man named Dakkon. Dakkon was born centuries before Urza Planeswalker detonated the Golgothian Silex into a hostile and war-torn Karandor, where tribal clans and militant city-states fought each other in near endless bloodshed to gain power and territory from their neighbors. Dakkon's skills were well suited for this environment, and he quickly proved himself in combat, becoming a deadly warrior renowned across the villages. For decades, he led men into combat. For decades, he slew foe after foe, each kill extending his name further across Karandor. He was ambitious and cunning, carving out as much power for himself as he could, and indulging his own ego. If you're at all wondering how highly Dakkon considers himself, just listen to the flavor text on his card, taken from his memoirs. My power is as vast as the plains. My strength is that of mountains. Each wave that crashes upon the shore thunders like blood in my veins. But the years of conquest slowed Dakkon, and he realized he could not battle forever. The warrior retired himself from war, turning his knowledge and talents gained in his youth to crafting weapons rather than wielding them. He lost himself in the hot fires of his work, forging armor and blades to exquisite excellence, further extending his legendary status. The hardened warrior settled into his passion and even started a family. But an arrogant soul, a heart burning with ambition and lust for power, couldn't be content for long. As the sparks of Dakkon's forge flew, his own desires simmered within. And this is precisely when a woman named Geyadrone Dihada arrived in his village with a most peculiar request. The woman approached Dakkon describing a need, a desire to gather power, to conquer, to control. She talked of ambition and purpose, strong emotions that resided deep within Dakkon's own heart. Geyadrone demanded the blacksmith forge her a blade, but not just any blade. The finest sword ever made, one crafted to perfection, reinforced with dark magic. A weapon powerful enough to raise kingdoms, to level mountains, and to drink in the very souls of those it slew. She gave Dakkon 10 years to complete his task. For such a feat, however, Dakkon required compensation beyond coin. Dijada revealed herself to be a planeswalker, a supremely powerful being that could travel the many worlds of the multiverse. She confided in Dakkon that she sensed a spark like hers within him, latent, but ready to ignite. For his efforts, Dijada promised Dakkon that she would ignite his spark and grant him the powers of a planeswalker. Dakkon seized the opportunity, for his heart still held the desire for conquest and the ambition for greatness. The blacksmith agreed and began his work. For 10 years he would toil, planning, crafting, improving and polishing the most powerful sword ever wrought, the legendary Blackblade. Dakkon's work on the Blackblade started strong. He poured all of his skill and knowledge into its manufacture, but soon he realized that his expertise with iron and steel alone wouldn't be enough to create the Planeswalker's weapon. Dakkon turned to the occult to reinforce the blade with magical energy drawn from sacrifice. In the beginning, the blacksmith spilled only his own blood, using it to feed the required spells and infusing the blade with his own power and essence. For years, he poured his sweat and blood into his creation, but the sword was hungry for more. In order to make progress, sacrifice was demanded. Dakkon's own lust for power blinded him and darkened his heart. He brought forth a slave from the village and plunged white-hot blade into flesh. The sword drank the man's soul and grew stronger in power. The blacksmith could feel the energy flowing within the Blackblade, but for it to truly be the finest blade, it demanded more, always more. Each day, Dakkon would work in the fires of his forge, heating and molding the blade. When finished, he cooled it on the blood of a slave, plunging the Blackblade into their heart and drinking in their soul. Dakkon's forging of the Blackblade and simultaneous descent into dark ambition are highlighted in the card Profane Tutor. The flavor text reads, "As Dakkon forged the Blackblade for Geyadrone Dihada, he unwittingly forged himself into her schemes. After 10 years, the work was finished, the Blackblade crafted, and Dihada's true schemes came to fruition. Geyadrone returned to Dakkon's village and was pleased with the Blackblade. It was indeed the most powerful and dangerous weapon she'd ever seen crafted. With his side of their deal fulfilled, Dijada agreed to confer onto Dakkon the powers of a planeswalker. As this is a pre-revisionist tale, it's uncertain whether Dijada gave Dakkon planeswalker abilities or merely used her magic to ignite his latent planeswalker spark. Regardless, Geyadrone used her magic and Dakkon ascended to the status of planeswalker. He could feel the power coursing through him, feel his strength surging. He knew that he would be unmatched in destructive power across Corondor and perhaps all of Dominaria. Dakkon could finally feed his ambition and resume his life of warrior and conqueror. But Geyadrone Dihada was not interested in the Blackblade. The weapon she wanted was Dakkon himself, forged in the fires of desire and corrupted beyond redemption in the decade of sacrificial magic. Dakkon's soul was twisted by his own creation, and Dijada wanted him as her champion. He was a planeswalker, however, and too powerful to bind to Geyadrone's will with her sealing magic. But if she could weaken him, Dijada would have a warrior and blade master of legendary renown at her beck and call, to fight, kill, and die for her. As Dakkon basked in the power and glory he'd just recently obtained, Geyadrone reached for the Blackblade and thrust it into the ground, piercing the warrior's shadow. The cursed magic of the Blackblade fed on Dakkon's shadow, consuming it and his soul for Dijada, but leaving his body intact. With Dakkon weakened, Geyadrone's first step in creating her new champion was complete. She took the Blackblade and planeswalked away. Dakkon was left wandering the plains, cursing Dijada for stealing his soul and promising vengeance on her with his newfound powers. Dakkon continued his pursuit in the years that followed, while Geyadrone continued to advance her plots and schemes. She returned to Corondor, where she slowly corrupted the lush and vibrant forest of Kone in an effort to bend to her will the nature spirit that resided within. This benevolent force of nature was no match for Dijada's magical influence. She transformed the forest into a fetid and stagnant swampland, while corrupting the spirit into a twisted demon known as Solkanar, the Swamp King. A being of immense power, Solkanar became a pawn of Dijada, an extension of her will, reflected in its blue, red, and black mana cost that mirrors her own. She gifted Dakkon's Blackblade to the demon, who turned to conquer much of the lands of Corondor in Dijada's name. Countries fell and thousands perished to every swing of the Blackblade, growing Geyadrone's empire in the process. During this time, Solkanar erected the unholy citadel for his mistress, a grotesque, walking fortress made of the bones of those he slew. Eventually, Solkanar and Dijada's forces came to the city of Karth. A bustling and vibrant trade town, Karth was made to bend the knee to the planeswalker. Although it submitted, resentment and disgust simmered among the populace until it boiled into a full-scale rebellion. Merciful is not a word that could describe Dijada. She sent her champion Solkanar to show the people what fruit came from resistance. The demon proceeded to murder 100 villagers and throw countless others into Geyadrone's prisons. One such prisoner was a youth, a boy named only the Son of Karth, whose mother and sister were among the 100 slaughtered by Solkanar. Son of Karth, or Karth, vowed vengeance on Geyadrone Dihada for his murdered family and all the horrors that befell in her name. Karth's prison cellmate was an old, crazed monk who, upon hearing Karth's vow, offered his assistance in defeating Dijada. He told the boy of a spellbook and an amulet within the demonic planeswalker's personal library that could be used to summon a champion, a warrior of legend strong enough to defeat Dijada, the planeswalker Dakkon Shadowslayer. The mad monk used a spell to teleport Karth into Dijada's library, where the boy snatched the aforementioned Amulet of Tifu and activated it. A most peculiar artifact, the amulet summoned Dakkon and bound him to Karth, preventing him from planeswalking away. Displeased at being summoned against his will, Dakkon struck out at Karth, but realized that the amulet prevented him from either killing Karth or planeswalking. They're linked to another, but Dakkon's resentment fades as he learns of Karth's hatred for Dijada and his desire for vengeance, a desire the planeswalker shares. The bond is quickly tested as news of the pair reaches Dijada. She sends her champion Solkanar, wielding Dakkon's Blackblade, to fight the planeswalker. The two lock themselves in an epic duel where spells, steel, and blood are traded, while Geyadrone pleasurably spectates from a distance. Dakkon bests the demon spirit and defeats Solkanar, but victory is short-lived. Geyadrone Dihada emerges from the shadows and states that the recent events were all according to her plans. She reveals that the mad monk that helped Karth was in truth herself in disguise. She needed Karth to activate the Amulet of Tifu, for it weakened Dakkon and prevented him from planeswalking, allowing her to finally claim him as her champion. Outsmarted by his sworn enemy, Dakkon's rage reached new heights as he moved to attack Dijada. The demonic planeswalker protected herself by summoning the Elder Dragons Chromium Rule and Piru. The two dragons burst forth from the ether, intent on killing the renowned warrior. Although weakened by the amulet, Dakkon's power was nonetheless immeasurable. He casts a spell that instantly banishes the Chromium Dragon. Meanwhile, Karth realizes that Dakkon's long-lost shadow has returned, and that the Blackblade sits within reach. He rushes for the sword and throws it to Dakkon. With sword, shadow, and soul restored to him, Dakkon surges with unrivaled power. Piru, an elder dragon and dangerous creature, throws all she has at the planeswalker, but it isn't enough. Dakkon Blackblade shrugs off each furious assault with ease. He rushes headlong into the dragon and plunges his blade through her scales and directly into Piru's heart. The cursed blade drinks in the soul of an elder dragon in an explosive surge of mana and power that cracks the very ground they stand on, a ravine that is later referred to as the Dueling Chasm of Gulthanor. An event reinforced in the Elder Dragon's flavor text, which reads, "Chasms of dueling energies course within her." But even defeat is turned into victory for a scheming creature as vile as Geyadrone Dihada. She reveals that this again was the outcome she intended. With Piru's death, Dijada reaches out and absorbs the energy released from the Elder Dragon. She wanted the Elder Dragon to die so that she could gain even more personal power, and she states that Dakkon and Karth performed their parts marvelously. The two stand in shock, once more duped by the planeswalker that can't seem to lose. With his former power and his soul restored, Dakkon moves to strike Dijada, but even his power pales in comparison to the surge of energy she gained from Piru's death. The released energy finally allows Dijada to claim the weapon she planned to so many years ago. She batters back his attacks, weaves a powerful spell, and places her mark on Dakkon Blackblade. We can see this in the art and flavor text of Dijada's ploy, where the last piece is finally in place, and her weapon is finally tied to her will. Geyadrone planeswalks away, leaving Dakkon with the knowledge that he will never truly be free, that he's merely a tool of destruction to be used at her leisure. With vengeance fulfilled for neither, Dakkon Blackblade and the son of Karth, whom Dakkon names Karth the Lion, seek to find new life and meaning on the continent of Terracier. It's there that Karth builds the family dynasty of House Karthalion, whose members play significant roles throughout the history of Dominaria, with the legendary Dakkon Blackblade to guide them. And it's now that we come to the point in Dakkon's story that's up to a little bit of speculation and has canonical viability that is often argued. This is due to the cancelled line of comic books published by Armada Comics that focused on the most powerful planeswalkers in the multiverse and their conflict that erupted on Dominaria, known as the Planeswalkers' War. Storylines and arcs were planned for 3 comics titled Alliances, Prelude to War, and the Planeswalker War, but they were terminated in favor of the Weatherlight Saga storyline. The war took place in roughly 4200 AR, which is nearly 4,500 years after the story of Dakkon and Karth. It's here that we would have likely seen Dakkon Blackblade and Geyadrone Dihada's feud continue, as well as Dakkon's interaction with House Karthalion, as one of their most famous members, Jared Karthalion, was partly responsible for sparking the Planeswalker War. Perhaps Geyadrone would have summoned Dakkon as a weapon to use against other planeswalkers, while he continued to find a way to rid himself of his bond to her, all the while trying to assist Jared in any way he could. With such a hole in the continuity of Magic, it's difficult to say what befell Dakkon Blackblade, Geyadrone Dihada, or Jared Karthalion, but none have been seen since the end of the war. But what of Dakkon's legacy and the fate of his legendary Blackblade? Regardless of his own fate, his cursed sword remained on Dominaria, a symbol of ancient power and weapon possessed with great potential for devastation. The next mention of the sword comes to us in 4500 AR during the Time Spiral crisis on Dominaria, where several pasts, futures, and alternate realities came together as the multiverse began to tear itself apart. Here we see the zombie warrior Korlash, heir to Blackblade, wielding the legendary weapon. Now, whether Korlash is a descendant of Dakkon or merely another being to wield the blade is up to speculation, as well as the nature of his existence. Could he be part of Dominaria's past pulled to the present? Or does he represent a point in time that never was? Or one that is yet to be? We don't have a definitive answer. Decades later, the Cabal minion Needle comes to discover fragments of the legendary Blackblade, buried under the ruins of history. The shards of the sword are taken to the Cabal stronghold, where it and its history are reforged. The elder demon Belzenlock, who has taken over leadership of the Cabal, claims the Blackblade as his own, and also claims the glory of having crafted it in an effort to boost his supreme opulence. After recouping from their defeat at the hands of Nicol Bolas, members of the Gatewatch seek out alliances for help in the coming battle against the Elder Dragon. They arrive on Dominaria to recruit the Planeswalkers Karn, Jaya, and Teferi to their cause, as well as rid Liliana of Belzenlock, the final demon that has control over her soul. With the assistance of Joyra and the Weatherlight crew, Liliana and Gideon fight the Demon Lord in his Cabal stronghold. Here, Gideon discovers the legendary Blackblade reforged and believes it can be used in their fight against Bolas. Its flavor text states the situation quite succinctly. It spilled the blood of one elder dragon. In Gideon's hands, it may yet taste another's. The first being Piru millennia ago, the second, the vile Nicol Bolas. Fast forward a few weeks, and the Gatewatch and their Planeswalker allies are fighting for their lives and for the multiverse on Ravnica, against Bolas and his Dread Horde in the War of the Spark. Here, the Blackblade's legendary powers are once more on display, as Gideon Jura deftly wields it to slay Eternal after Eternal. Its soul-drinking and corrosive curse are strong enough to even affect the undead God Eternals, as Gideon slays Ronus, temporarily slaking the blade's unquenchable thirst. During the War of the Spark, Gideon follows in Dakkon's footsteps and is named Gideon Blackblade. Near the climax of the war, as Bolas's army slaughters planeswalkers, gathering sparks to fuel his Elder Spell, Gideon takes to the skies of Ravnica on the back of a Pegasus and launches himself at the Dragon God, hoping to use the Blackblade's power to steal Bolas's soul and slay another Elder Dragon. But as he closes in, the zombified God Eternal Elketra looses a bolt from her bow, piercing Gideon's mount as he plummets towards the ground below. As hope falls with Gideon, an unlikely hero emerges to catch him, the demon and Perrin Rakdos. This is highlighted in the art and flavor text of Unlikely Aid. The unusual pair advance on Bolas, the Planeswalker putting all of his faith in the legendary sword before jumping off Rakdos and plunging it into the Elder Dragon. If we pull up the art of Gideon Blackblade, we can see Rakdos and his demonic wings in the background. As Gideon plummets, and as the Blackblade makes contact with Bolas's scales, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. Foreseeing this potential event, the dragon reveals that he had long ago enchanted the sword so that it couldn't possibly harm another Elder Dragon. This is given to us in the art and flavor text of Tyrant Scorn, which reads, "The hero with the magic sword slays the dragon? Not this time." And just like that, the Blackblade is destroyed. Just like that, Dakkon's legacy is consigned to history. The Master Warrior, Bladesmith and Planeswalker of legend, who affected events for thousands of years, is now nothing more than a memory. But the Blackblade was reforged once. Perhaps its shattered pieces, in worthy hands, can be forged once more. Thanks for watching this video on the story of Dakkon and his legendary Blackblade. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe for more lore content. And now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on Dakkon, Geyadrone, and Karth, as well as suggestions for future videos in the comments below. Shout out to Alex Joaquim for the intro and outro music. References used can be found in the description. Until next time, go forth and explore the world.